So tell me, if I'm running an entrepreneurial business right now with a $250,000 revenue and I've got 10 grand sitting in my bank account that I'd love to invest, what do I do next? Before we start, what should viewers know about Lloyd James Ross?
Well, I think something that's interesting is that I've been able to succeed in multiple different businesses, in multiple different industries, and in the investing landscape, and be financially independent at a young age. I think that is quite probably unique.
So you're how old now?
I just turned 41.
And so when you say at a young age,
Well, I did it in my 30s when it kind of came together.
yeah,
But yeah, in my 30s,
right.
I think I did that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Lloyd, your profile has grown with extraordinary prominence in recent times. Your ability to attract that online entrepreneur who has already achieved some sort of success, and then to help them to grow their business, but not only to grow their business and hit, let's say, $1 million in revenue, to actually, your point of difference is you teach them how to keep that $1 million, leverage it, and turn it into 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
Why this different approach? Because most coaches and consultants really just spend time teaching people how to grow their business.
Yes. Well, I think it's an area that's unknown. And I think the quick answer is most people don't know how. And in Australia, all they know is property, property, property. It takes a lot of capital to do that, and also some know-how. And if you're good in business, generally you're not good at the investing side of things. You're good at investing in yourself, building your business, but all of your money goes into your business. And so all of my friends who are very successful entrepreneurs, they've been seduced by putting everything back in their business. And I thought to myself, I've got this saying. It goes, I only want to get rich once.
Yeah,
And,
that's true.
right? And
Yeah.
so it's not when you're coming up the first time to get rich, let's say, or let's say financially independent and successful financially, it's difficult. It's not easy. Otherwise, everyone would do it. But because it's challenging, I didn't want to go on and climb the mountain twice. And I have seen people like even my dad's been up and down when it comes to wealth. And I thought, far out, it's incredible resilience that these people have to keep building it back. But I just want to do it one time so that I don't have to climb the mountain again. I can just go from a bigger benchmark. And so part of the journey for me was I want to become a 7-figure entrepreneur. And I did. But at the same time, while I'm doing that, I also want to invest into assets and hold and maintain that level of financial independence and freedom. So no matter what happened, I didn't have to ever go back to square one. If that makes sense.
Sure. You're the author of a number of books around money and leveraging and growing wealth and all of that sort of stuff. And I know the titles of your books, but let me ask you, do you really think that money buys happiness?
Well, believing the alternative is probably not going to serve you anyway. So if you don't believe it can buy happiness, then you're probably going to be less inclined to get it. So in one of those books, Money Buys Happiness, and the other one is Money Grows on Trees. I just finished my third book actually, which is super exciting. But in the book, I talk about the fact that money does buy happiness if two things happen. Number one, you earn it a certain way. And number two, if you spend it a certain way. And the reason why people don't think it brings happiness is because they do both of them incorrectly. So they'll earn it by doing something they hate.
And so how should people earn it? And
Well-
what is that certain way? And how should they use it in that certain way?
Well, it's a good question. So like money, Morgan Housel talks about this in his book, The Psychology of Money. He says that money's greatest intrinsic value is its ability to give you control of your time. That's the greatest dividend that wealth pays. And so if you're going to make it and we're going to spend so much time at work, you may as well do something you enjoy. So part of the process of even my own journey was I had to figure out how to get out of 9 to 5. Then I had to figure out how to get out of commission-only sales. I had to figure out my way out of the things that weren't bringing me joy to make money, because then I could make more of it. Because the person who enjoys walking will always walk further than the person who doesn't.
True.
So how you make it and getting the joy from it, which are aligned with your spiritual gifts, your talents, your interests, if you can make money in that space, you'll make more of it because you can go for longer and you'll work harder. But then the second part is, how do you spend it? You spend it on things that are not like just material things. You spend it on things that create more choice, more freedom, more memories, more joy. And if you can find things to spend it like on those things instead of just keeping up with the Joneses, you'll get more joy from it. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, then maybe you haven't given any money away, because that's the greatest joy, So
yeah.
So that's probably covering both aspects of it.
Do you think everyone's capable of getting rich?
Everyone's capable of it. I just don't think people want to enough. Now, I don't know why, because money itself is not the objective. It's what money gives you. So we both know that money gives you the ability to choose, the choice. And with that brings your ability to live a juicy life. Now, why don't people want that? They do, but for some reason they haven't worked out that money is the conduit. They just haven't. Well, I don't know how they've not worked it out, but money is the conduit to that life.
Yeah.
So
it's interesting, both of us are in the entrepreneurial online space especially, and you've had this prolific rise of prominence across the world in relation to your messaging. And, I think there's a certain amount of credibility associated with your message based on your non-entrepreneurial ventures in your early life. Take us back to, your first exposure to entrepreneurship, making money, and how did that influence your decisions when you got to the end of school, say?
Yes. Well, if I had a chance to leave school in grade 8 or 9 and go and work, I would have. I just would have. I just wasn't. I could tell straight away that it was important to get an education, but not continue the education. However, I was also a byproduct of the indoctrination process of school into university. And this is long before the days of YouTube, and you could start a business from your phone. This is before then. It was before the internet, really.
Mm-hmm.
So my first experience with entrepreneurship was seeing my dad work. And I remember he came home one day with a big briefcase of cash and opened it up. Now, he may have sold a car. I don't know what he did, but he said, look at this money. And I was like, wow, like he must be entrepreneurial to be able to produce that and create that. So when I was 11, I started my first car washing business.
Wow.
And we were living in a complex at the time. And so I'd go and letterbox drop in the complex, and we had a couple of clients. And in those days, we were washing a car for $5. And so I had my first experience of someone who was trying to say to me that the Boy Scouts did it for $3. So I had to overcome the objection that we were better. We were more convenient. So I guess that was my first entree into entrepreneurship, but I didn't build it a lot. But then I went on to do things like a lot of my friends when I was at university, they were working at Woolworths, and I was out washing cars. I was mowing lawns and cleaning pools. And I still remember there's a guy, I was doing his pool, his car, and his lawns. And I made his pool turn green. I killed his palm trees, and I could do a good job in his car. He ushered me upstairs one day. He must have been a trader. He's like, all these cigarettes. His big mansion. He said, come upstairs. He said, Lloyd, maybe you should just stick to the car. I said, no worries. So I was never afraid of saying yes and trying to figure out and making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
I cared, but I wasn't afraid of making mistakes. And I think that really helped me I wish there was a university subject called entrepreneurship that I could have gone into where it was me opening a business. I would have done that in a heartbeat, but I didn't.
So your, rise through your early adulthood into the person you are now is somewhat of a paradox, because
yes,
you did follow the line of the traditional education. I think you went to university. You wanted to become a doctor. You got a biomedical degree.
Yeah.
And then you ventured into law. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, my dad is super entrepreneurial, and he left school in grade 10, didn't have an education. And he's for the most part of my life, he was the wealthiest guy I knew. The most successful guy that I knew,
mm-hmm.
and very successful. And you know that because you know him. You were successful with him. We talked about it on our show. But be that as it may, because I was indoctrinated through school, I went to private school, And then everyone went to university. It was the rite of passage, what you did. So I was like, well, I was good at biology. I'll go into medicine. And you can imagine my dad like, yeah, let's go. Like, because no one had really done that in the family. That was that's a big status card. And so I did it. I finished the degree. I was 19 when I finished my first degree. I went overseas for a year, had a gap year, came back and had to change of heart, wanted to get into business. So the only thing I knew how to do was to study. And so I went to university and my dad was like, yeah, go to university and study business. I got an MBA or Masters of International Business when I was 20.
Wow.
So I finished that when I was 20. And this is a funny story. On the way to my graduation from my master's at 20, ridiculous, my dad said to me on the way, he came to watch me graduate with my mum, but my dad said, hey, champ, I think you should do a law degree.
Okay.
And I had no other like plans. So, and he was the most influential person I knew. And he's hard to say no to, as you know, my dad. So I said, okay, at 20, like I'm still pretty green. So I went into real estate, got my real estate license, went back to law school, finished law school, got admitted in 2008, became a lawyer. Did it for one day. Then left and went over to the United Arab Emirates to work in real estate development. I got a gig over there for the Formula One circuit in Abu Dhabi, built that part of the project. So I actually never really used those degrees helped me get that job. But the reality is I was not really ever built for academic. I wasn't. But what I could do was focus. And I got a pretty good memory. So I could always study and pass exams. So I have 3 degrees from university and I almost have a CFA charter, which is like a financial qualification. So I have got qualifications coming out my wazoo. But that, I never really wanted to do that. I always kind of wanted to get in business, but I just didn't know what that looked like.
I think there's a lot of people who sort of stumble and meander around in their early 20s trying to find their place. And then they find their spot in entrepreneurship. And entrepreneurship really, at the end of the day, is all about selling and growing an audience. I know myself when, in this particular chapter of my life, when I started to grow my digital marketing agency and my online coaching agency. I told a lot of my students, the key attributes about growing your business are around leveraging your skill set, number one, growing your audience, number 2, that's hugely important, and providing value to the people who bought your, courses or offers, if you like. But you having an academic background, when you entered the online space or the entrepreneurial space, what was it about some of the things you learned in academia that helped you create the success you've got now?
Great question. Steve Jobs said that when you look back, all the dots connect. So there's definitely elements and advantages of having the education. I just didn't know what that was going to look like. It's not so easy to connect the dots. But when I got out of I resigned from a 9-to-5 job in 2012. That's the last time I got a paycheck. I only had a paycheck for 3 years of my life and that was it. And I knew I couldn't rise. I was stuck there. I was psychologically unemployable, effectively. So I got into real estate and started working in there. And that was great. I liked the freedom of building and doing things from our own decision making. I liked that. I didn't like the clinicalness of an institution where there was rules, and I just wasn't me. And so I was able to experience the building process and the risk taking of entrepreneurship. But then as I was able to build online more, and we started an online business and scaled that, and then another online business. As I did that, the parts of my academics that did help me was that we structured a company pretty well early because I was a lawyer. It was very simple for me to understand that. And I took a lot of the profits and invested them because I took corporate finance and, again, put myself through the CFA charter program, which is actually the highest qualification in finance in the world. And I put myself through, there's 3 levels, 6-hour exam for once a year, and I've now at level 3 to sit the exam. So I put myself through that financial training, and it didn't seem like it was going to make me any money, but now looking about how I've taken the profits and put them into shares and scaled that and created capital, leveraged the capital to create more capital, it's definitely helped me. And it helped me to, when I was reading some of these books, I didn't understand some of the concepts. And that's why I put myself back into this study realm to learn what they meant. So it's definitely helped me be able to read financial statements and not be afraid of lawyers. I'm not afraid of that area because I've had a big glimpse inside there.
So what you're saying is that, this education sets you up somewhat to not be frightened of some of the things that perhaps somebody who doesn't have this education may encounter and become frightened of, and hence thwart or slow down their attempts to grow their businesses. But this is a particular interesting route that you've gone down, because the space of entrepreneurship, and certainly the advent of the online entrepreneur that now exists today. I mean, like 10 years ago, that this was not a thing. Yet it is so prolific in its nature. I mean, we make jokes about the influencer, but the influencer at the end of the day is a person who is online selling their brand, to people and leveraging their audience growth. But what we see is a lot of people who don't have the sophistication of actually understanding the value of the money they earn. They are driven by, the opportunity to make $1 million.
Yeah.
However, they struggle. They're good at what they do. They run good online businesses. They hit like 200 grand or something like that. And they don't know how to get to this next step. But here's the real kicker. And this is what I've seen through the growth of, and I'm a generation ahead of you, but this is what I've seen through the growth of online entrepreneurship is there's a lot of people earning $1 million a year online. In fact, I would advocate that it's actually harder to earn 200 grand online than it is to earn $1 million. And we have this attraction of not having to work hard, for many, many hours. The internet and all technology allows us to leverage our time. So it's easier to, if you know how to do that well, it's easier to, hit that $1 million plus a year. But the one thing I do see is all of these people online earning these amazing sums of money. They're probably the biggest earners amongst their circle of friends.
Yes.
With no idea what to do with all of this money. Yeah. And in the end, they end up inviting all their friends on a corporate jet ride that, from one state to the next, or staying in the penthouse suite of the most expensive hotel. And I see that as an issue because, nothing lasts forever.
Yes.
But it's as though they approach the whole game of entrepreneurship with an intent that this is going to last forever.
Yes, that's true.
Is that who you speak to?
Yes. And I speak to that because I saw that firsthand with my dad. Now, we know how great he is at entrepreneurship and making money, but I saw him in the insurance industry. He was the best in the insurance industry. Like, as you know, the best. Like, he was top international salesman of the year. Blah, blah, and that whole industry went through this period where there was so much money being made. And because of that, and it was new money by the people making it, that you do feel it's going to go forever. And of course, it looked like it was, but then it didn't. And the same thing happened like when he moved into the real estate business too. The regulations come and change the goalposts a lot. So no one's fault, but generally regulation changes the field of play. The rules are changed. And that's what I started to see. Now, my dad is one of the most incredible, resilient people I know. So he persevered and he pivoted and always has survived and thrived, always. So he will move and find something. But I saw whole industries collapse. And so I was able to see and learn from that experience. And so I knew growing up that not everything lasts, particularly when there's an ability for people who aren't maybe the best in the world at it, making the best in the world money. So if you see an industry where there's a lot of people making a lot of money quite quickly, fast, a lot of it, and like what you said, they don't really respect it because of how they spend it, I know that's not going to last forever. Not because of anything else, but generally regulation. Like if there's profits to be made and the government ain't making it, they're coming to change. Something will shift.
And so seeing that from your perspective, seeing that all these people are earning, as you were, lots of money and are lots of money online, but you've somehow seen a gap there where there's a space for education around what do I do with all of
Yes.
this money? Because the other side of the equation, having been in this online space for a long time, is that while you may not have to work 1 million hours a week to generate a lot of money, your brain is working 1 million hours a week.
Yes.
You know, the online space is a journey that you spend a lot of time in your head. You become tired. It leads to burnout, run out of ideas. And in order to keep an entrepreneur's ideas coming, they need periods of time where they can just step back and do nothing.
Yes.
Right? But a lot of them are just chasing their tail constantly.
Yes.
So is what you're saying, I'm seeing that and I've come up with a solution for that.
Well, where it all started from was I had an epiphany because one time my wife and I, in our first business, we scaled that business too. We've earned a couple $1 million in that business in profits, still going, still profitable. And I remember we won a lot of trips with it.
Mm-hmm.
And so the company would fly us all over the world.
Mm-hmm.
And this particular time we're in Fiji on this top achievers trip and we're on a bus. They're taking us somewhere and you sit with different people. And I happened to sit next to the number one income earner in the industry and on the bus. I thought this will be an interesting conversation.
Yeah.
And so that particular person had just earned around about $400,000 in a month.
Right.
Think about that.
Wow.
400 grand in a month.
Mm-hmm.
And had built, talking about getting rich fast, had really built that very quickly over a 3 to 4 year period. That's very quick. And I was like, this is interesting. And then we were chatting away and talking. And this particular person just wasn't up to speed with, there were, conversation around, well, I don't really know what my tax bill is.
Yeah, right.
I don't really know I don't have no investment plan. I just did this and it was this, oh my God, how can you be making that much money and not even, number one, understand how much it really is compared to other, really.
And how much of it is yours?
And how much is yours, but almost like, well, I don't know if that's going to last. And also plan for it not to, but you don't even have a plan. It just blew me off. I thought, oh my God, I just thought that people had it together financially when they were earning a lot of money. And of course, we know that sports stars come in on money and they don't have it together. So that's an example of now with the entrepreneur is a little bit like the sports star who's received all this money and doesn't have the mindset or the training or the guidance to grow it. And you can see it with sports stars. When they do have that training and guidance, they do really well for the rest of their life. But those who don't, do really poorly for the rest of their life.
Go back to bricklaying, labouring, and whatever.
And I saw that happen in this industry time and time again. I was thinking to myself, I was observing it going, I don't want to be a statistic. So when we scaled the business, at all times, I would always set aside some and diversify and buy assets. And so that's where I spotted the gap. And then the gap widened more when the likes of Facebook ads and online coaching and online entrepreneurship flourished, which it has in the last few years. And now I'm seeing younger people do even bigger numbers faster, which is insane because of the leverage that's now available. So you can get rich very quickly now, which is what people don't realize. But what that means, it is like the proverbial sports star. But instead of sport, it's business.
It's entrepreneurship. So do you think this stems from, one of the draw cards, I believe, for entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in the online space to grow their business? There's a common, probably from the generation previous to them, that you should avoid anything that promotes get rich quick. And I look at it from my perspective and I go, well, you can't deny the facts. There are a lot of people getting very rich very quick. Yeah. And it's interesting how old models are drawn into the new era. Now, if you look at the online space now, what it's done is it's accelerated everything. If I was to send an invitation out to come to my birthday party in generations gone back, it would take 3-4 days, provided the person was within my, regional proximity. It would take 3 or 4 days to get that invitation, for them to open it, for them to respond, hey, I'm coming. But today I can send out a birthday invitation like that. Yes. And so when we think about people getting rich quick, it is a truism of today that there is opportunities to get rich quick, and the get rich quick processes really should drop their negative connotation. However, it doesn't mean that the person develops their skill to be able to handle the rich quick, so to speak. Do you think people have a negative relationship with money in general?
I think most people grow up and are programmed by their parents and teachers and colleagues to have a particular belief system around money, which is negative. Because if you can't have it and you don't have it, all of a sudden you're a victim of not having it, and then you will talk poorly about it. So that is what programs them to think that way.
Mm-hmm.
But also you do hear, and you have heard a lot of stories from yonder year where those that get money lose it, and then they say, that's the worst thing that ever happened to me. And again, that's just a victim mentality, because money is like, it's not, it's an inanimate object. It is what we do with it. And so money is not to blame, but people do that because it's easier than taking responsibility. What they should be saying is money is not bad or evil, or it's I don't understand it because I haven't trained myself to be good with it. And that's taking extreme ownership. And you and I both know that people aren't good at doing that generally.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll cast blame. So when I in my past have hit obstacles when it comes to money, I didn't blame it. I said, I'm not good enough. And Jim Rohn used to say, don't think it were easier, or don't wish it were easier, wish you were better. So I decided just to get better at it.
Mm-hmm.
And now it goes where I send it. It doesn't get legs and go there by itself. It goes where I send it, and it grows where I send it.
Yeah.
And that is the type of attitude people should have with money, and they're allowed to have now with money, because the education around this space is prolific. Back when you had to send physical birthday invitations, there wasn't a lot of understanding around money and wealth, but now it's just so accessible. You would think that people would get richer, but it's not landing still. Even though it's accessible, it's still not landing.
Sure. We're in the online space, certainly. There are some amazing transitions taking place, and maybe this won't last forever. With the advent of, I know in my space, with the advent of artificial intelligence, I can create offers on behalf of my clients that are completely built through AI, cloning of their face, cloning of their voice. And so as more and more players enter the marketplace, the online space, it's, I think, going to slowly and progressively become harder and harder, just simply by virtue of more players. So
yes,
now really is the time for someone who's encountered reasonable success in their entrepreneurial journey to seek out and use the same. It's likely that by virtue of the fact that they're an entrepreneur, they've subscribed to the theory that perhaps, they don't know how to do something, but they've subscribed to the theory that someone else would.
Yes.
They just need to go and find that someone to gain that knowledge.
Yes.
So as things change, and I don't wish to be the prophet of doom, but as things change and entrepreneurship becomes a little bit harder, it warrants people taking a closer look at the money they're earning and going, well, even if I get a downturn in what I do, or even if I, sustain the level of my productivity, the money I'm earning is getting eroded by inflation. What can I do with that money to make sure that I can live this type of lifestyle in 10 years' time, even if this doesn't exist? And I think the absence in the marketplace of teaching young entrepreneurs what to do with their money, the sophisticated knowledge that those that we call wealthy today actually have. And it almost is like a game, isn't it? Where those who are super rich and super wealthy just seem to know something about leveraging money and multiplying money that perhaps the newbie entrepreneur doesn't. Would that be fair?
That's very fair. It's in two parts though. Like the first part is, well, they do think it's going to continue. But what happens to a profitable industry is it breeds competition. And that's why businesses have to innovate and industries innovate, because the competition comes in and the margins are squashed.
Yeah.
So what will happen in every industry is eventually if there's easier profits there or wide profit margins, over time they'll get squished down and business will become harder. And all of a sudden you won't be able to invest the same amount. You won't be able to go on these big trips and fly first class. Like, you will have to tighten the belt and think of ways to get more margin. And so if you actually are investing as you're building your business, which I'll cover in a second, and there is a bit of a downturn or there is the margin that's squashed, you have extra cash flow to compete at a fierce level with the people coming in.
Yeah.
And that is very important. And so people aren't planning for that.
Mm-hmm.
They're thinking.
That's a great point. You know, I know where my business is at, and in terms of what my offering is, there are lots of people in my space, but because of the provisions that I've made over time in growing, I can beat them with ad spend every single day of the week, such that they can't catch up.
Yeah,
this is what you're talking about.
Yeah, and so if you have this, you have multiple income streams coming, and particularly some of them coming with no effort.
Yeah,
that's an unfair advantage you have over the competition. Because if you just depend on all your one income coming in
from one source
that's getting squashed, all of a sudden you can't be as nimble, can't pivot as fast, and you can't create the value you used to anymore for your client, and that'll impact your business. So the trick to it is this: it's not complex. The trick to it is an attitude. It's an attitude that understanding, yes, you're still going to be great at business. Yes, you're still going to kick ass. Yes, yeah, you're going to live this amazing entrepreneurship life. Still think that way, but like the burn the boats mentality, like burn the boats and let's go forward. I like to have that mentality, but I like to have a little dinghy around the corner just in case something happens. And I've learned that from seeing a lot of people make a lot of money and lose it. So I'm like, well, I'm happy to burn the boats, and I've done that to be successful in business. And again, multiple successful businesses. But I've got the dinghy, I've got the assets, because over the course of the last, I would say 10 years, I have methodically been taking some of the profits and diversifying and buying assets. Now you can choose whether it be real estate or shares, a simple index fund will do it, but diversifying your profits away from your core business into other growing assets that don't require your time or effort will one day become a competitive advantage, because your money will compound without your effort. And it doesn't need to be a lot. Like, you could still spend 95% of your income and put 5%, just a little bit, and it's a habit. Like you would shower. Mm-hmm. Like people shower every day.
One would hope they would.
Yeah, and to stay clean and healthy.
Yeah.
But they don't do this with their money. They don't date their money. They don't look at their bank statements. They don't talk about it. They don't plan for unknowns. And they're looking for this big jackpot experience, this feeling of this dopamine rush of this lifestyle they've got to live up to. Just put some away and let it scale without you, because one day you might need the dinghy. Mm-hmm. And I would almost say that day will come.
For everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it comes for athletes, doesn't it?
Yes, it does. It does. They do reach their use-by date, and they just can't run as fast as they used to.
Yeah.
And I think it doesn't have to be the exclusive domain of the athlete. And so shifting their attitudes to money and understanding the unfair advantage that it can give them in their existing business, whether it's to grow their audience or generate some other means of income so that they can actually take time away to be a little bit more creative and get a clear head and start with a blank canvas. All of those things need to be anticipated. Yet, I think for a lot of entrepreneurs, they're driven by this notion that this will last forever.
Yes.
And they're engulfed in the lifestyle that they lead, but somehow shy away from the concept of investing and putting money away because they think that it will somehow lessen the quality of life that they're having in that moment.
Yes.
Would that be fair to say?
1,000%. That's the feeling they get, which is what's preventing them doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the mistaken belief is that it's one or the other, and it's not. Because they think, well, if I'm going to invest and buy assets and protect my wealth and grow it, that means I can't invest in my business and scale it to the next 10, to 8 figures and 9 figures. And well, you can. because we built multiple businesses to 7 figures at the same time as investing to multiple 7-figure portfolios. So I did both.
Mm.
My wife and I did both. It's not one or the other. And I think that's where their mindset gets stuck. They think, well, if I do this, I'll miss this. It's not correct. It's just do both. Yes, it may mean you don't get 5 first-class tickets this year.
Sure.
Whoop-de-doo.
Okay.
Just do 4.
Yeah.
There's got to be some give and take, but yeah.
I know with my business, I've wanted to pivot in recent times. And one of the biggest desires I had, I asked myself, I said, if money and time weren't an object, what would I be doing right now? And the answer I came up with was nothing. However, I think because I hadn't generated the income stream, from going a high income earner, I just looked at it and I thought, well, I can't afford to do nothing because I don't want to go backwards with the, fantastic lifestyle that I might lead, right now. But I believe that if I had been given some coaching and some mentorship when I kicked off, that heralded these times, logic would have prevailed and I'd have made some adjustments in terms of what I did earn, maybe one less business class flight, as you put it, or whatever, such that, a few years down the track, I could have been in a situation to go, I can stop the 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
I can allow the creativity, which is the one thing that gets a lot of us entrepreneurs to where we are, to rejuvenate.
Yes.
And I know for sure that when I do have time off, I come back with some fabulous ideas that exponentially grow my business.
Yeah.
And so doesn't it make sense to think about investing even in the short term as that little panacea, that little opportunity to allow you to, a bit like your computer, to just shut it down and let it reboot. There's a period of time allowing us to do that. So if there is someone who feels like that, they're a bit burnt out, they're a bit this, they've still got some effort and time left in them, can somebody from, maybe they've only got 10, 20 grand sitting in a bank account, can someone get rich from that point? Because when you talk about property, we need big lump sums of money to get into property. We might need 100 grand or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Can you get rich through investing by starting with 5, 10, 20 grand?
Well, you can. You actually can. Like you're talking about just investing in, say, stocks or whatever.
Sure.
You definitely can if you pick the right ones. But the trick to growing, say, 10 or 20,000 is definitely starting a business. So like investing in your business is critical. So like our second business that we scaled to 7 figures in about 2.5 years, 2 years, boom. Like that's getting rich quick.
Absolutely.
Yeah? So that cost us 10 grand. So think about that. It was 10,000 to start it and then we built it and we reinvested a lot back in. So that was fast. And even in our early days with our network marketing business, that cost us $1,000 to start. And we got that to 6 figures in financial freedom from our jobs to 180 grand a year in 3.5 years, thereabouts. That's also quite quick. So the way to get rich with smaller money is to actually build a business. But what you want to do is you want to get rich quick, but you want to stay rich. So you want to get rich quick, but get rich once.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the mission, because getting rich quick now in this day and age is possible because of leverage. So everyone talks about compound effect. The compound interest, Einstein said, was the 8th wonder of the world. That's great, but it takes a flipping long time. So the 9th wonder of the world is leverage. And there's never been a better time than right now to engage leverage, which
Tell me what you mean about leverage.
Well, leveraging the internet is unbelievable. This is why so many people are getting rich quick, which they are. So leveraging the internet, leveraging social media, leveraging other people and partnerships, which is critical, and leveraging a good quality vehicle in the right industry at this time is how you get rich fast and how you get rich quick. But then taking some simple financial education and principles into your business, you get rich once, because to get rich quick like that still takes effort and so forth. And in fact, it is actually easier to do it faster. But once you have done that, it's important to stay rich, because to do it again, I don't know what the next opportunity will look like. It may not look like this, what we've experienced. It may be something completely different. With AI, who knows what's going to happen, what the next opportunity is.
Sure.
But I don't want to base my wealth on what might be. I want to have got rich, stay rich, and then it allows you to actually, like you said, pivot and strategically think at a completely different level.
And so if somebody is sitting there with their 5 or 10 grand, buying into the notion of, thinking about that dinghy in the burn the boats scenario, and they want to see a result happen relatively quick.
Yeah.
I think that's the age that we live in. Everything's fast.
Yeah.
And we want to see our investments turn into, or multiplied in a fast period of time.
Yeah.
There's so they can flip things. That's a really quick way of doing these. They could buy stocks.
Yep.
If you'd have been part, I think, of the NVIDIA rise, you could have made money very, very fast.
Well, even Facebook and last year.
And Facebook's share price
5x in 1 year.
has gone nuts. So there are plenty of opportunities for people with 5 or 10 grand. But not everything is a sure bet.
No.
And what happens a lot when it comes to investing is people are sometimes put off the whole idea of ever investing because their first attempt didn't work out.
Sure.
Can you tell me, for you, was there an occasion where you took an investment decision that didn't work out for you, but the fact that it didn't work out for you was the greatest investment decision you could have ever made?
Yes. I actually put my faith into a financial advisor when I was living in Dubai, and he opened what's called a front-end loaded fund, and you get penalized if you take it out and so forth. And that was my first experience investing in stocks, because I wanted to invest in stocks. I didn't want to buy real estate. And so I did that, and I was putting money in there. And then he put me in this fund of funds with all this mining stuff, and the GFs, and it just collapsed, and I lost money. And
did you lose a lot?
I probably lost, I would think, maybe 20,000.
Wow.
Now I was in my 20s, so it was just, well, yeah, it didn't tickle, but I didn't blame him. I was like, well, that was the epiphany where I'm like, Lloyd, no one's going to care about your money more than you. You need to educate yourself in this space. And that was what lit the flame in me, thinking, well, I don't want that to happen again. I can't depend on financial advice. I don't like financial advice. I hate it because you're dependent on someone else telling you what to do. So I'm like, Lloyd, you've got to go after financial education. So I took it upon myself to educate myself. Like, what are stocks? What is a fund? What is this? What's that? And so that was what really prompted me to go down this space. That was my first experience. My own experience of investing in things that are not working out. I've bought stocks before that haven't worked out, and it was a learning experience. I'm like, well, why didn't that work out? And I've invested in people and businesses that didn't work out, and I've lent money that didn't get paid back. But they're the moments that craft or carve out your money rules, your hard boundaries, your lessons. But it does kind of like light the fire with, well, I don't want that to happen again. So what do I need to learn, or what skill do I need to develop to prevent that happening again? And Warren Buffett has this quote that people quote all the time, and I think it really hurts them. When he quotes it, he doesn't mean it this way, but they take it literally. So he has this saying, in investing, rule number 1 is never lose money. And rule number 2 is never forget rule number 1. Now, unbeknownst to most people, Warren Buffett has lost a lot of money investing, but that's what's allowed him to learn. So you will never be able to invest or build a business or invest in yourself, or whatever it is. You'll never be able to invest and not make a mistake, ever. So I'm okay when I lose money. It's just when I lose it, it doesn't crush me. So I'm always conscious. If I'm going to invest something, if I have high conviction, high control over it, I'll bet a lot. But if I don't, I bet a little bit.
Yeah, got it. So you're not defining your capacity to make sound investment judgment by a loss.
No, you have to have losses. Like in life. Life's not one. The only thing that goes up in a perfectly straight line is Bernie Madoff's Ponzi scheme.
Yeah.
That's the only thing. And that's not real life.
No.
So yes, you will lose money, but make sure you don't position your business and your assets and your financial life on one big thing. Make sure you don't bet the farm on something you don't understand.
Got it. Don't put it all on black, in other words.
Totally.
So don't have a rush of blood to the head about this amazing idea that someone might, position in front of you, is what you're saying. And you're saying educate yourself about how to make sound judgments and sound decisions. Now, throughout this discussion, you've said the word stocks on numerous occasions, and I'm getting the inkling that you favour the idea of investing in stocks.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it's fascinating. My dad says it's a miracle I don't own property because my background is I'm a licensed agent. I still have a full real estate license.
Got it.
And I cut my teeth on a little bit with Ray White when I was about 19, 20.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was and I live in a city called the Gold Coast, which is literally like every second person's a real estate agent.
Mm-hmm.
And then I became a property lawyer in the property area. Then I got into real estate development and I was a development manager for a real estate company. Then I got into business with my dad, which is real estate marketing and investing business. My whole background is real estate. How is it I've not owned any? And what steered me away from it was I saw where people were buying homes and they weren't actually buying homes or property. They were buying mortgages. And what happened to them was it limited their ability to make more money because it lynched them and it anchored them to the debt. And I didn't want to box myself in. So I was conscious at a young age. I didn't want to get on a lot of debt because I wanted to be nimble and I wanted to be entrepreneurial. And I knew that would prevent me being that. So that's what steered me away from it. And so I thought, but I knew I needed to invest my money. I knew I needed to get my capital to work for me. And the only way I knew how to do that in a liquid form that was flexible was stocks. And so I set about learning how to do that. And now having a multi-million dollar portfolio as an entrepreneur, at any moment in time, I can put my hands on $2 million very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Now, as an entrepreneur, that's a very powerful position to be in because we have no debt.
Mm-hmm.
We have a business, got a little bit, but no personal debt. We don't have car debt, anything like that. Don't have a mortgage. So I can put my hands on $2 million anytime. And my effort and time and capital has gone into businesses and stocks and not accumulation of mortgages. And I feel like that's given me flexibility, power, an advantage, and I would say a lot of confidence walking into a room knowing I can do that. I'm very nimble financially.
So this isn't you saying that property is a bad investment.
No.
You're saying that
For
by
an
investing in stocks and for an entrepreneur who needs to be able to pivot, access money, who's prepared to endure the pain of the roller coaster that is entrepreneurship, it provides them with a greater access to the fuel that they need to sustain their entrepreneurial journey in the longer term.
Well, I've had people call me up, like my business partner, Morgan, he called me up and he said, he's one of our business partners. We have multiple business partners. This is the events business we've in together. He called me up and said, Lloyd, we're going to get Ty coming to Sydney. We're going to do an event with Ty Lopez. Let's get into partnership and do this together because to do that in Sydney here is not cheap.
No.
Like, and when you're starting a business, it's not cheap. So it's like, well, 2 heads are better than 1, 2 networks are better. And when he asked me that, immediately I said yes, and I had the cash. And even another friend of mine, we just recently bought a brick and mortar business together. When he came to me and we cultivated the idea, he found it and I had the money.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a big emergency fund.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're an entrepreneur, you know that sometimes you've got to pivot very quickly. And you got to make very important decisions quickly.
And you want those decisions to be not made about a lack of money.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like if I had a property, I would have to go to the bank and get an equity loan, which might take 2 or 3 weeks.
Yeah.
It's not liquid.
Or sell the property.
Or have debt. And I'm like, well, I just didn't need, entrepreneurship is hard enough without having a debt load behind you. And I have seen that again. I speak about this in my first book and even on my show as well with my dad. I've been fortunate to see how property acquisitions for him have limited the entrepreneurialism in him at different times. And he's learned from that and pivoted, which has been great.
Mm-hmm.
But I was able to learn those lessons too. So I like real estate. I think it's wonderful, but I think real estate's a great way to stay wealthy, not necessarily get wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, people who have held onto property in Sydney are very
Sure.
wealthy, but it's been slow and long. But I like it. It just, for me as an entrepreneur, it wasn't going to serve me the best for an asset.
Got it. So you've developed this online business that puts its arm around budding entrepreneurs who are doing well. It shows them how to go from 200,000 or 300,000 in revenue to maybe $1 million plus in revenue. It shows them then how to hang on to that money, leverage it, and grow it further so that in the event something happens, they can pivot. It's not advocating doom or gloom. So tell me, if I'm running an entrepreneurial business right now with a $250,000 revenue and I've got 10 grand sitting in my bank account that I'd love to invest, what do I do next?
Well, if you have no financial education, then the fact of the matter is wisdom comes before money. And so it's like if you had 10,000, you want to build a business, but you had no business experience or education. The last thing to do is go and start a business. You need to be educated and shown the way. So if you have that money, at least spend some of it on financial education so that when you do start investing,
investing in yourself.
Yes. Invest in your own financial education and knowledge first with some of that money so you know what assets are, you know what you own. So many people are investing blindly, and I talk to them all the time, obviously. And so Lloyd, I've got this asset and that asset. I'm like, great, why do you own those? I have no idea. So they're putting the cart before the horse. They're putting the investing process before the education. So I would say to the person who's got the money, the very first thing you need to do is understand it. Learn investing, learn the principles, learn the fundamentals, spend the money putting it in here so that you can actually, it's what the old saying goes, it's very good, empty your wallet into your head so your head can fill your wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what I'd suggest they do. Because once you have the knowledge, you won't just know what to do with the balance of the money you still got left, but you'll know what to do with all profits you have going forward for the rest of your life. Now, that knowledge is worth millions and millions of dollars because I know the people who have been educated through some of the principles that I teach and the principles that they've learned from other people. I've seen it produce $1 million already, but it will continue to produce multiple millions. I mean, I have a guy in one of my early education courses. He took the knowledge and applied it, and he just sent me a message probably only 3 days ago on WhatsApp. He said, Lloyd, I just want to send this message. I just got paid a $70,000 dividend check in cash, which is more than what I used to earn in a year.
Yeah.
And he only started that educating himself 3 years ago. Now, think about that. He's young too. He's like in his late 30s. Think of the knowledge that he's learnt and how that's going to he'll make millions of dollars out of that knowledge. But that is the most important thing to do.
I think, I'm contacted often by very successful business owners, brick and mortar business owners and online business owners, and their goal is to grow their business. And, one of the things that I specialize in is building online campaigns that attract attention. And I talk to them about this focus of growing their audience, growing their audience. And they're already on board when I speak to them. They all understand that growing their audience is super important to their business. And I teach and I create strategies and ads and video presentations that fortunately, successfully, exponentially grow their personal brands. But it's one pillar in an overall strategy.
Yes.
I guess what you're trying to say is growing your business and growing your brand is great. Invest in doing that. But when you receive the dividend from all your hard work and your activity, invest in gaining some knowledge about what to do with your money.
Yes.
So that you can develop wisdom in terms of what decisions you should make with it.
Yes.
And when you have the wisdom in terms of the decisions, you're going to be equipped in being able to make sound judgments about what the best investment is for you.
Yes.
That's going to give you a quick return or a midterm return, or at least a return that is going to be underscored by the fundamental reasons why everybody should invest, because you're saying everyone needs that dinghy one day.
Yes, totally. I think that if you can do both. And with business owners, it's very easy to get seduced with ego hitting numbers. So I want to do 2 million this year. I want to do 8 figures this year. And as a business owner, that's what lights people up. It's this challenge and it's this yearning to go to another level. And my question is, for what purpose? And if it's just because you enjoy the journey, wonderful. But just understand that while you're doing that, you can also tuck some away so that at one point when you get tired of that game, you don't have to play it if you don't want to.
Yeah.
Because Naval Ravikant says that the objective of the game is to escape the game.
To escape the game, absolutely.
But how are you going to escape if the well you've been drinking out of dries up and you have no other wells? Dig your well before you're thirsty, because at some point, one day in the future, you may be dying of thirst. And because you built another well or another 2 wells, because you listened to this podcast episode and you educated yourself, you won't die of thirst. That's the trick.
Lloyd, you've said some pretty profound things, and people who've listened through, I'm sure you've spoken to the very core of some of their concerns, where they've really subscribed in. And if I was imagining our audience listening to us here, they'd be nodding their head or thinking, yeah, sound advice, sound advice, sound advice. But it's tremendously sound advice, not coming from parents or school teachers or whatever. It's sound advice from one online entrepreneur to the next. And so if someone's been moved in terms of, you know, what they're doing, they're highly successful, they're generating great revenue streams, but they don't have the wisdom as to what to do with it, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, if you've recognized that you need a full financial strategy around your business and not just can we hit new numbers, and you want to get the wisdom, then the first step is to start learning that wisdom, the correct wisdom based on the path that I've taken myself personally. And so the best way to get in touch with me would be to jump onto Instagram at Lloyd James Ross and grab my latest book, Money Buys Happiness, which is moneybuyshappinessbook.com. And that's the first step you take to acquiring the wisdom that you know you want, but you don't know who to turn to get it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, for a young guy of 41, you have incredible wisdom, and it's a credit to, you know, you being, what strikes me about you is you have the curiosity, and I say this in a nice way, of a child, in so much as it seems like you have walked your journey, gone down the traditional method, got multiple degrees, but maintained an open mind. And that curiosity has drawn you to you being able to experience the sort of lifestyle that's widely extolled to be the finish line, the freedom lifestyle, the work from anywhere lifestyle, the laptop lifestyle. It seems that you've been able to accomplish that. And not only that, that you've built it around encouraging entrepreneurs to take care of their financial health. And as a result, I'm sure that your following is built full of people who would go, thank goodness I met Lloyd. So can I say thank you very much for sharing that wisdom with us. And I really think that this is an important consideration for, this is sort of the old guy talking to the younger guy. And one of the things that you find as you get older is you just happen to see a lot. And I've seen so many people in my lifetime who have earned so much money, but as they get old, are not in the place they should be that was commensurate with their talent, the skill, and their hard effort. And I can only put that down to the fact that they didn't think about their dinghy. Thanks very much for being with us today.
Thanks
I
for having me on the show.
appreciate talking to you.
Likewise.